All right, we're on chapter 11 of Out of My Mind. And this is when she finally has started fifth grade, which is the meat of this story. Fifth grade started a few weeks ago, and a couple of cool things have happened. Well, I didn't get a gadget that makes Garfield like speech bubbles over my head, but I did get an electric wheelchair. And our school began something called inclusion classes. I thought that was funny. I've never been included in anything. But these classes are supposed to give kids like me a chance to interact with what everybody else calls the normal kids. What's normal? Duh. Gross. Comparing my new chair with my old one is like comparing a Mercedes to a skateboard. The wheels are almost like car tiles. Tires, sorry. The wheels are almost like car tires, which makes the ride smooth and easy, like riding on pillows. I can go really fast, but I can't go very fast, but I can propel myself down the hall with just a little lever and a handrail. Or I flip the switch to manual and I can still be pushed if I need to. When Freddie first saw it, he shouted, "Woohoo!" like he just won the Indy 500. "Melly, go zoom zoom. Want a race?" He spun his chair in excitement and he ran in circles around me. I'm sure he could still beat me, even at the subatomic speeds our chair is set to. My electric chair is a lot heavier than my manual chair, and it's almost impossible for mom and dad to lift me anywhere in it. When you decide to switch to rocket ship for transportation, Dad said, rubbing his chair, he said, "You're going to need to hire Superman to get this in the car." I grinned, but I knew he saw the thanks in my eyes. So, he bought a set of portable wheelchair ramps that fold and fit in the back of our SUV. With those, he can roll the new chair into the back of our car and still have back muscles left over. For me, it's all about freedom. Now, I don't have to wait for someone to move me across the room. I can just go there. Nice. So, when they decided to mainstream us into regular classes, the electric chair was really helpful. Our fifth grade teacher in room H5 reminds me of a television grandmother. Mrs. Shannon is pudgy. She wears lavender body lotion every single day, and I think she must be from the South because she talks with a real strong drawl. Somehow, it makes everything she says seem even more interesting. She told us on our first day, "I'm gonna bust a gut making sure y'all get out of this school year, you hear? We're gonna read, we're gonna learn, we're gonna grow. I believe every one of y'all got potential stuffed inside, and together, we're still gonna make some of that stuff shine." I liked her. She brought in stacks of new books to read to us, as well as games and music and videos. Unlike Mrs. Billups, Mrs. Shannon must have read all of our records, because she dusted off the headphones and even brought in more books on tape for me. I jerked with excitement as the aides helped us down the hall to music. I wondered if I get to sit next to a regular kid. What if I did something stupid? What if Willie yodeled, or what if Carl farted? Maria was likely to blurt something out crazy. Would this be our only chance? What if we messed it up? We were going to be with regular kids. The music teacher, Mrs. Lovelace, had been the first to volunteer to open up her class to us. The music room was huge, almost twice as large as our classroom. My hands got sweaty. The kids in there were mostly fifth graders, too. They'd probably be surprised to know that I knew all of their names. I've watched them on the playground, at lunch, and at recess for years. My classmates sit under a tree and catch a breeze while they play kickball or tag. So I know who they are and I know how they work. I doubted if they knew any of us by name, though. Well, the whole thing was almost a disaster. Willie, probably upset and scared being in a new room, started yelling at the top of his lungs. Jill began to cry. She held tightly to the hand grips of her walker and refused to move past the doorway. I wanted to disappear. All of the normal children in the music class, I guess about 30 of them or something, just turned and stared. Some of them even laughed. Others looked away. But one girl in the back row crossed her arms across her chest and scowled at her classmates who were acting up. Two girls, Molly and Claire. Everyone knew them because they were the meanest. They were mean to almost everybody on the playground. They mimicked Willie. They made sure they stayed out of the teacher's line of sight. But I saw it. So did Willie. "Hey, Claire," Molly said, twisting her arms above her head and bending her body so it looked crooked. "Look at me. I'm a retard." She laughed so hard she snorted snot. Claire cracked up as well, and then spit dribbled out of her mouth. "Do-woo-woo-woo-woo-woo," she said, crossing her eyes and pretending to slip out of her chair. Miss Lovelace finally noticed them and said, "Stand up, please, Claire." "I didn't do anything," Claire replied. "You stand up as well, Molly," Miss Lovelace added. "We were just laughing," Molly said defensively, but she stood up next to Claire. Miss Lovelace took the girls' chairs and slid them over to the wall. "Why'd you do that?" Claire cried out in protest. "You have perfectly good bodies and legs that work. Use them," Miss Lovelace instructed. "You can't make us stand the whole class," Claire moaned. "The Board of Education requires that I teach you music. There is nothing in the rulebook that requires you to sit down while I do it. Now, stand there, be quiet, or I'll send you to the office for showing disrespect to our guests." They stood. In the middle of the third row of chairs, where everyone else was seated comfortably, they stood. This teacher is awesome. After that, things went a little more smoothly. Jill, who continued to cry, had to be taken back to our room. The rest of us sat quietly in the back of the room. Mrs. Lovelace began class once more. "I think we need a moment to gather ourselves, children." She sat at her piano and began to play Moon River. Moon River. And she switched to the theme song from one of those vampire movies. Oh, yeah. She knew which one we liked. And then I started seeing colors. I knew she was good. I could see green, lime green, emerald green. I glanced over at Gloria. Instead of sitting all curled up like she usually does, her arms were outstretched like she was trying to catch the music and bring it to her. Her face was glowing. She began to sway with the music. Then Mrs. Lovelace completely changed to tempo and played the opening notes of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and Willie clapped his hands wildly. Finally, the teacher started to play "The Boogie Woogie Boogie Boy," and Dad would have loved it. Kids started to shimmy in their seats. Maria got up and started dancing. She clapped loudly, never quite on beat, but to a rhythm that was all her own. Mrs. Lovelace paused at the end of the song. "Music is powerful, my friends. It can connect us to memories. It can influence our mood and our responses to problems we might have." She cut her eyes at Molly and Claire, who were still standing in the empty spaces. I wanted to tell Mrs. Lovelace I liked music too. I wanted to know if she had ever heard of the song Elvira, or if she would teach us how to make our own music. I tried to raise my hand, but she didn't notice. It must have looked like another one of those random movements that kids like me seem to make, but I had a feeling that Miss Lovelace was someone who'd take the time to figure me out. The teacher went on. "Before I continue with the lesson, let's make this a real inclusion experience. Perhaps our friends from room H5 would like to sit with the rest of us instead of being stuck in the back." Freddie heard that and took his chance. He put his chair into gear and zoomed to the front of that big room and shouted, "I am Freddie. I like music. I go fast." The class laughed. I can tell the difference, though, between people making fun of us and people just being nice to us. And Freddie could too, so he joined the laughs. Mrs. Lovelace looked momentarily startled, and then went over to Freddie, shook his hand, and welcomed him to the class. when she sat him right there in the front next to a boy named Rodney. Rodney gave Freddie a high five, and the two of them grinned at each other. Okay, I had to admit, I was a little jealous. Mrs. Lovelace asked an aide to bring Gloria down to the front row, close to the piano. A girl named Elizabeth glanced at Gloria nervously, but she didn't move away when Gloria was wheeled next to her. Elizabeth's best friend is a girl named Jessica. At first, they sat together near a fence and shared granola bars. I've always wondered what they whisper about. I also noticed that everything Elizabeth does, Jessica tries to do too, but she tries to outdo it. Like if Elizabeth beats her running to the fence, Jessica insists they try run again just so she can win too. Or if Elizabeth gets a new book bag, Jessica will have one the next day. So when Elizabeth started talking to Gloria, who looked terrified, Jessica raised her hand and asked if one of the H5 kids could sit next to her. Maria might have trouble figuring out some stuff, but she's a really friendly person. I want to sit by the blue shirt girl. I want to sit by the blue shirt girl, she demanded. She stomped next to Jessica's seat and sat down next to her. Then she jumped back up and gave Jessica a hug. And she gave a hug to the kid sitting closest to Jessica. She wanted to hug everyone. One kid stiffened up when she touched him, but I was surprised that most of them let her hug him. "Oh, yuck," Claire whispered. "Cooties," Molly whispered back. Mrs. Lovelace raised an eyebrow, then cleared her throat. "It seems you two like to stand. Okay, fine. You'll continue to do that for the rest of the week." "Aw, man, this sucks," I heard Claire say. Molly had sense enough to say nothing. Maria didn't notice. She even kissed Claire on the cheek. That was funny. Willie ended up next to the stage. Friendly boy named Connor. And Ashley and Carl were absent that day, so that left me sitting in the back of the classroom all by myself. The room got real quiet. I suddenly felt cold, like the air conditioning had been cranked up real high. I got goosebumps. The teacher looked out around the room, expectation on her face, I guess, hoping that someone might volunteer to take me. At that moment, I would have given anything to be back in our Bluebird room instead of sitting there with 30 kids staring at me. Finally, a girl got up out of her seat and walked over to my chair. She squatted down and looked me directly in my face. Then she smiled. It was a girl with long hair that had frowned at her friend for laughing. "I'm Rose," she said in her soft voice. I smiled back. I tried really hard not to kick or grunt or make a noise that would scare her away. I held my breath and thought about calm, quiet things like ocean waves. It worked. I inhaled deeply, slowly, and pointed to my board. "Thank you." I showed her how I could power my own chair, and I rolled it to where she'd been sitting. We sat together for the rest of that class, and I didn't do a single embarrassing thing. It ended way too soon. But ever since, every Wednesday, our little class of outcasts gets to join Mrs. Lovelace's music class. It's awesome. Jill, Ashley, and Carl eventually became part of the group. Each one of us has been assigned a buddy to sit with and interact with. Once they met her, all the girls rushed to be Ashley's buddy. I think it's like playing with a little pretty doll for the first time, but Ashley likes the attention. Claire and Molly eventually got their chairs returned, but they haven't chosen buddies for any they haven't been chosen for buddies for anybody yet. And that's fine with me. Elizabeth and Jessica have stuck with Gloria and Maria. Jill sits contentedly next to a girl named Aster Chang. Rodney actually comes over at recess and talks to Freddie. Sometimes he pushes Freddie real fast in his chair. Freddie loves that. And I get to sit with Rose every single Wednesday. On Tuesday, I can barely sleep because I'm so excited. I make my mother pick out the nicest clothes on Wednesday morning, my cool outfits. like the other kids wear. I screeched at her until she gets just the right combination. I make sure she brushes my teeth so my breath won't stink. I think about Rose all the time. I worry that she will change her mind and not like me. But Rose talks to me like I can understand, and she tries to figure out what I'm saying as well. One day, I pointed to new and then shoes and nice on my communication board, then down to her feet to let her know I noticed she got new, nice shoes, and I liked them. At first, she seemed surprised that I could do this, especially since it sometimes takes me a long time to make my thoughts known. One day, I pointed to music and bad and stinky, and then started laughing. Rose didn't get it at first, so I pointed to the words again, then pointed to Mrs. Lovelace, who was playing some kind of jazz music on the CD player. I'm like Mom, not a big jazz fan. It confuses me, and I don't like it. Rose finally figured it out. Oh, you don't like jazz? Me neither. We both laughed so hard. Mrs. Lovelace had to put her finger on her lips to tell us to hush. Never in my life have I had a teacher tell me to be quiet because I was talking to someone in class. It was the best feeling in the world. I felt like the rest of the kids. Rose tells me secrets sometimes. I know she bites her fingernails and she hates milk. She goes to church every Sunday, but falls asleep until it's over. Me too. She has a younger sister, just like I do. She even likes country music, just like I do. Sometimes she tells me about trips to the mall with her friends. It would be so awesome if I'd be able to do that. By the end of October, the inclusion program has been expanded. Maria and Jill have been added to art and gym classes. Freddie and Willie go to science. Me, for the first time ever, I've gotten to change classes for different subjects in my life. Now, when the bell rings, instead of wondering what's happening out there in the halls, I'm out there. It's awesome. I plow through the crowds in my electric chair like a power mower in the grass. Sometimes kids wave or say, "What's up?" Every once in a while, someone will even walk with me to the next class. That's cool. But inclusion doesn't mean I'm included in everything. I usually sit in the back of the room going crazy because I know the answers to things and I can't tell anyone. What's the definition of the word dignity? One of my teachers asked a few days ago. Of course I know, so I raised my hand, but the teacher didn't notice the small movement I was able to make, so she doesn't call on me. And even if she were to call on me, what then? I can't very well yell out the answers like other kids. It's pretty frustrating. During parent conferences earlier this month, my parents came in and they met Mrs. Shannon and the other teachers. Instead of leaving me in my own corner upstairs, Mrs. Shannon pulled me into the circle where the teachers were, who were involved in the inclusion program. She's so great. She patted the arm of my chair and smiled. This child's got some serious smarts. She's going to be our star in this program. I did my usual screeching and kicking. I think I would have kissed her if I could, but that probably would have been pretty gross. Well, it's about time somebody recognizing what we've always known, said Mom. We really appreciate the opportunity to let her show what she can do. Mom was especially pleased to find out I'd been assigned a mobility assistant, an aide of my own. Finally, Mom said, with relief in her voice. We've been asking for this for years. Budget busting paperwork. A system that runs on grits instead of good sense. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Shannon replied, shaking her head. I'm trying to get all the students in H5 the services they need. But I smacked an aid for Melody was on the top of my list, so we'll see. I'm expecting a wonderful school year. So cool, I tapped on my board. An aide? Wow, this person's job would be to take me to classes, that's it, and help me participate? I wonder what she'd look like. Or maybe I'd get a guy. Would he be young and cute? Or would he be old and grumpy? The very next day, my new aide was at school before I was, chatting with Miss Shannon in her room. At I rolled in. She came right over to me and took my hand. Hi, Melody. I'm glad to meet you. My name is Catherine. I go to the university, and I'm going to be your deals and wheels every day. She talked to me like I was any other student, not just a kid in a wheelchair. I tried not to kick, but it was hard to hold in my excitement. Cute t shirt, she said, as she checked out my Tweety bird on the front of my new shirt. I pointed to thanks on my board. What's your favorite color? She asked. I pointed to purple, and then quickly slid my thumb over to green. I grinned at her. You're quick, Melody. I can see we both like weird colors. We're going to get along just fine. Catherine was dressed in purple tennis shoes, green tights, a purple suede skirt, and the ugliest green sweater I've ever seen. I wanted to tease her about her outfit, but I didn't want her to think I was mean, after all. I just met her. I searched all over my board for a way to jokingly make fun of her clothes, but I couldn't think of any way to do it. It is so hard to say stuff. So now it's Catherine who helps me at lunch so I don't make a mess, and it's Catherine who reads me the answers as I point to my board. She's added so many more words and phrases to my board. She also helped Mrs. Shannon order books that I needed to read. She's even made sure the headphones don't fall off my ears. The regular, normal fifth grade language arts teacher is Mrs. Gordon, and she's not much older than Catherine. She almost explodes with energy and makes books seem like live action plays. She jumps up on the table, and sometimes she sings. She lets the class act out parts of stories and sometimes even turn books into games. Vocabulary bingo! Miss Gordon announced one morning. Donuts for the winning team! As they played, my classmates broke their necks to try to get the right definition, scream out answers, and groan if they mess up. In just half an hour, every student in the room knew all 20 vocabulary words. Miss Gordon gave donuts to the losing team too, but the winners got ones with sprinkles. I knew all of the definitions, but the other kids moved too fast for me. Chocolate would have made a mess of my clothes anyways. With sprinkles, chocolate sprinkles. Um, One unusually warm day this week, Miss Gordon brought in fans and spray bottles of water and let us eat popsicles in class. Orange ones, of course, in honor of Halloween, while she read poems about pumpkins and ghosts. Catherine held my popsicle for me with a paper towel under my chin. We didn't spill one drop. Miss Gordon does other cool things too, like she decided the class would really like to read the story of Anne Frank. She had kids take turns squeezing into a small space she'd built under a table so they could understand how Anne might have felt. I couldn't do that, but I got the idea. And she's assigned other great books this semester, like Shiloh by Phyllis Reynolds, and The Giver by Lois Lowry, and there's that one called Tuck Everlasting. The kid never gets to grow up. Staying a child forever, not as cool as folks might think. Because of Mrs. V, I could actually read books. But the print is usually very small, and it's hard for my eyes to stay on the right line. And nobody has figured out the best way for me to hold a book without falling and without dropping it a million times. So I usually choose the audiobook instead of the written one. I can even take tests now. Catherine reads me the questions, and I point to the answers on the sheets. I pass every single test, and she doesn't help me one single bit. I would probably get 100% on each one. But some of the questions require long answers, and I just can't explain with the words on my board. One time, in spelling, Miss Gordon read the words aloud, and I pointed to the letters on my board. Catherine wrote down what I pointed to so I could follow along with the test. Claire and Molly, who are always watching me, it feels like began to complain. That's not fair, Claire asked. Catherine cheats for her, Molly added. I hate those girls. What is it with these two? It's like they're jealous of me or something. I mean, that's just plain crazy. Jealous of me. At the same time, I realized they actually thought I have it easier than them. That's a first. Last Monday morning, Miss Gordon told the class, "As some of you may know, because I do this every year, our long range fifth grade project this year is our biography unit. We will read the biographies of famous people, do a report on a famous person of your choosing, and each of you will write your own autobiography." "Well, it's going to be short. What can you do in 11 years?" Connor said. Everybody laughed. "In your case, Connor," Miss Gordon replied, "I'm sure you'll think of way too much." "Can I do my report on the guy who invented hamburgers?" Connor asked. We all laughed again. "I doubt we know who made the first hamburger, but you can do your report on the person who founded McDonald's. He got rich off of hamburgers." "Awesome, my kind of dude," Connor said. Rose raised her hand. I love the fact that she's in my inclusion classes too. "Miss Gordon, what does this do?" Rose is the type of student who likes to make notes in her bright red spiral planner and never misses a homework assignment. "Relax, Rose. We've got until the end of May, and I'll walk you through each segment one step at a time. Tomorrow, we'll talk about how to write your memories." Rose seemed satisfied, but I noticed she scribbled almost a whole page in her notebook. I'd give anything to do that. But working on stuff the teachers do in regular classes is just plain awesome. History class is even better than language arts class. Even though the teacher named Mr. Dimming has none of Miss Gordon's spark. He's balding, he's pudgy, and he's been teaching at the school for over 20 years. The kids say he's never absent, not even once. Clearly, he loves what he does. His car is always in the parking lot when our bus rolls in, and it's always there when we leave for the day. He dresses like a TV preacher in three-piece suits and vests every day, and I've never seen him without a crisp white shirt and a colorful tie. I wonder if his wife picks them out. Some of them are really sharp. Mr. D loves history. He can quote facts and dates, and like war generals, I bet he could win on Jeopardy. The other students don't seem to like Mr. Dimming much, though. Some call him Dimwit Dimming. I think it's kind of mean because Mr. D is really smart enough to run the quiz team. When Mr. Dimming got to American presidents in class, I rocked it out. He gave students a list of presidents and all of their vice presidents and told us there would be a test in a week. Catherine read the names to me several times. "I've never even heard of some of these men," she admitted. "Hannibal Hamlin was Abraham Lincoln's first vice president. Who knew?" I memorized them all. When Mr. Dimming gave the test, all I had to do was point to the right answers. He checked to make sure Catherine wasn't helping me. I even finished before some of the others. While Mr. D was returning the test papers, he gave the class a few minutes free time to sharpen pencils or talk. I was surprised to see Rose walking towards my desk. "How'd you do on the test, Melody?" she asked. "I only got a 75. She looked disappointed. "I got an 85. But I was so excited she'd come over to talk to me, I got it all mixed up. So I pointed to 5 and then 8 on my board. She touched my arms. Her eyes got full of sympathy. "Oh, don't worry, you'll do better next time." She did this right in front of Molly and Claire and the rest of the class, and there was no way I was going to tell her what I really got on the test. I tried to think of something to say so she'd stay longer. Pretty, shirt, was all I could come up with. I sure could use a word choice that said something like cool outfit, but we never got that one. Rose beamed. "Well, you look nice today, too." I really didn't. I had faded sweatshirt on and sweatpants, and Mom could hardly choose anything else. I hate sweatpants. If I could choose, I'd wear blue jeans, sparkly decals, and unicorns, but I had no way to tell Rose that. So I pointed to thank you. Incredibly, she touched my arms one more time and went back to her seat with her friends. Then the bell rang. Class was over, and I had to go back to H5. No more inclusion, no more rows, and 4 more hours left of school. Even Catherine left. She had afternoon classes at the university, and she had to hurry to get there on time. Mrs. Shannon was sick that day, so I sat quietly with Ashley and Maria and Carl while we all watched The Lion King, which we'd seen a million times. Then the substitute teacher gave us a math lesson. Addition again. When am I ever gonna get long division or something hard? I wondered what Rose was doing. It was a very long afternoon. All right, we are finished. We are on page 112. We've made it past 100 pages. All right, we got an intro into what Melody's fifth grade school class school is like. Can't wait to hear what you think.